Guys, am I audible now? Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you. So yesterday we were discussing how to compile a file, the source file declaration rule. And from today onwards, we'll start creating classes. We'll start creating objects. We'll discuss the main method and all those things. But today we are going to use Eclipse for this purpose. Okay. Is that fine? Yes. So in the Eclipse, I'm going to create a new project. So what you'll have to do is, I hope you have Eclipse installed on your system. Okay, so just install the latest version of Eclipse on your system. And once you have installed Eclipse on your system, you will have to create a new project. So how to create a new Java project is very simple. Just go to File menu, say New, and you will get this new Java project. But if you are creating the very first project in your Eclipse software, then you'll have to go to File, say File New. Just a minute, guys. New, and go to Project. In the project section, you will see Java. Here you can see there is a Java folder available. Expand this, click on Java project, say next, and provide a project name here. My project name will be Jan 2021. This is my project name. I will say finish. So you can see my project has been created here. Fine. Okay, what should be the path of the newly created project? So what you can do, when you will be creating the project for the very first time, it will ask you to set up the workspace where you want to create the workspace. So my workspace is created in the D drive. So when you will be creating the first project, Eclipse will ask you where exactly in your system you want to create the project. Okay. And in order to know the path, you just have to right click on your project, go to properties, and you will see the location of your project. So my project right now is created in the workspace inside Dell, inside users, inside the C drive. So this is the location where my project has been created. So this is how you can find out the path of the newly created project. Just right click on the project, go to properties, and you will see the location where you have created your project. Clear? Is that fine? Good. So when you will be creating your project, like here, you will see two things. One is SRC folder. SRC means source code. So basically, whatever code you will be creating, whatever source code you will be creating, everything should be put inside this SRC folder. So whatever Java class you will create, Java file you will create, everything will be kept inside this SRC folder. Then you have the JRE system libraries. System libraries, these are nothing but jar files. Now, whatever Java classes you will be using, the predefined Java classes, the predefined keywords, the predefined variables, and all those things are part of any of these, jar files. Okay, so these libraries are required, and I'm using Java 1.8, so that's why I see JRE system libraries for 1.8 version. Okay, so this is how the project will look like when you will create a new project. SRC folder and the system libraries. Clear? Okay, now I'm going to create a new source file. Okay, a new Java file in my, what is this system libraries? System libraries, like Now understand, like in Java, you will be using some predefined classes which are already available in Java. Like, let me ask one thing. In order to use Selenium, you'll have to get the jar file of the Selenium, yes or no? You need the jar file of Selenium, yes or no? Similarly, in order to use the classes, the variables, the method, the keywords of Java, you need the jar files, isn't it? So this system, JRE system libraries contains nothing but the jar files only, which contains all those classes and the variables and the methods and the keywords. Everything are kept inside these, jar files. Clear? Okay. So now I will be creating my first .java file. How to create a new .java file is very simple. Right click on your SRC folder, new, and here you will have to say new class. You'll have to create a new class in Eclipse. Again, I will tell you how to do that. Right click on SRC, say new, and say new class. Okay. And you will have to provide name to your class. So let's say I want to create a class with name test. So what will happen when I will say finish, you can see a test.java file has been created. And this test class that is created by Eclipse, Eclipse has used public access modifier by default. Whenever you will be creating a new class in Eclipse, Eclipse will always make that class as public. It's up to you. You want to keep that as public or you want to make that default. If you want to keep this class as public, then let it be. If you want to make this class default, then remove the public keyword. You will not get any error. But as of now, do not remove the public class. One more thing I want to tell you today is that although in a .java file you can create n number of classes, like here also I can create n number of classes. Like say I'm creating a new class sample. I'm creating one more class, let's say class ABC. So I can create n number of classes. That is allowed in Eclipse as well, because Eclipse follows the Java rules. But again, if I show you, if I try to make one more public class in the same source file, immediately I am getting a compile time error. Can you see this red mark below the sample class? Can you guys see the sample class red mark? If I mouse over here, it says the public type sample must be defined in its own file. So the same compile time error is coming here as well. Now the best part of Eclipse is that the moment you write a new line of code, Eclipse will automatically compile that particular .java file. So compilation process is handled by Eclipse itself. You don't have to do that. Internally, Eclipse use the compiler whose path you have set in the system variables. Is that clear? Any doubts? So you cannot have more than one public class, as we have already discussed it. Clear? I hope this is clear. Okay, but although this is possible, but in Java, generally we create only one class per source file. That is what a normal coding culture followed by the Java people. The most of the Java developer, 99% of the time, create single class in a source file. And I'm also going to follow the same, standard. I will also create one class in a source file. But yesterday I just told you that it is possible to have multiple classes in the same source file. But in live projects, we generally create only one class in a source file. Is that clear? Is that clear? Any questions here? Please ask. Okay, clear. Now, can I execute this class? Can I execute this class? No, I'll not be able to run this program. Now, before I come to the running of, before I come to the execution part of this class, tell me How will you come to know that this has been compiled? Where the dot class file has been created? Any idea? Where the dot class file has been created? Any idea? At the same location? Okay, let me tell you where the file has been created, the dot class file. So this is the location. I'm going to this directory. No, not inside src. Dot class file does not get creates in the src folder. Let me show you. Now, when I go inside the folder, exact folder in the system where my project has been created, you will see bin folder as well as src folder. Now, src folder will just contain .java files. That it's src folder will never contain dot class file. In fact, the dot class file will be kept inside the bin folder. Can you see this test.class? Can you see this test.class? Okay, so the dot class file will be created inside the bin folder. Let me add one more class in this source file just for some time. Let's say class ABC. Now, the moment I save this file, can you see abc.class is also available here? Isn't it? So the dot class file will be created inside the bin folder. And the moment I remove the dot class ABC, it has been removed from here. Okay. Is that clear? This is handled by Eclipse itself. You don't have to do anything. Fine. So that is what I was trying to tell you, that compilation process is handled by Eclipse. Eclipse uses the compiler internally, and you will not have to do anything as far as the compilation process is concerned. Execution you will have to do on your own. Now, how do we execute any class is very simple. There are two ways to execute, there are three ways of to execute any class. One of the ways, like right now, the tab that I have opened is test.java, in which contains test class. So one of the option is right click on the class, just a minute, go to run as, and can you see run as Java program, run as Java application? Can you see the option run as Java application? No, we are not getting the run as Java application option. I will tell you why we are not getting that option. Next thing is that in the package explorer, you can right click on the particular .java file and you can say run as. Again, you are not getting run as Java application. Now, why we are not getting option here to run this class as Java application? Because Eclipse knows that in this class there is no main method. And remember one thing, in Java, without main method, you cannot execute any class. In Java, without main method, you cannot execute any class. You cannot execute any class. Is that clear? Okay, now why main method is required? Anybody have any idea? Getting option run on server, but we are not using any server now. We are not using any server, so that option will not do anything for you. Okay, that option will not do anything for you. Okay, so the main thing that you should know is main method should be available in each and every class which you want to run, which you want to execute, because the execution of any class, it starts from main method. Okay, main method is not used to call the class. Now understand the process, very simple. Let me tell you. Now let's say you have a dot class file. Let's say you have a dot class file. Just a minute. You have a dot class file. Now right now the dot class file you have is tester dot class, because I have told you yesterday that we always run the dot class file. We do not run dot Java file. Just a minute. Okay. So what you will do is, my system is getting hanged, guys. Please wait. Just this is your test.class. Now, when you will run this program, when you will run this test.class, when you will execute this, who is responsible for execution? JVM is responsible for execution. Now, what JVM will do is, JVM will, what JVM will do is, JVM will load the class file into the memory reserved by JVM in your system's RAM. Now understand this process very carefully. Whenever you run any .class file, the moment you run any Java application, now when I'm saying Java application, it means any Java program. The moment you run any Java application, JVM will reserve some memory on your system's RAM. JVM reserves some memory into your RAM. That memory which is reserved by JVM can used only by JVM for its Java application execution. No other application can use it. No other application can use it. No other application can use it. Okay. So JVM will first load that .class file into the memory. And once the .class file is loaded, then the execution starts. And after loading the class file into the memory, loading means the copy of the .class file will be created on the memory reserved by the JVM. As soon as the class loading is done, then JVM will search for main method. If JVM is able to find main method in that class, then only JVM will run the program, else JVM will not be able to run that program. Is that fine? Because for JVM, the starting point of execution for any class is the main method. For JVM, the beginning point, the start point for the execution of any class is the main method. Is that fine now? Clear? Anybody have any doubt? Please ask. Any doubt? Please ask. Yes, JVM basically executes the code, and inside JVM, interpreter does that. Okay. Okay, Abbas is asking, but we run the program using testng where we don't use. So that's why we use testng for execution. Okay, remember one thing, if you are not using main method for execution, then you need some execution, you can say server or testing framework, and that's why we use testng. When you are using testng, then you don't need to add main method. But in Java classes, we are not going to use testng. We will be using only main method. You will be using testng during Selenium classes. Clear? Can you explain what is main method? Yes, I will explain, Veena, what is main method. So just give me some time. Then Atul is asking, okay, but JRE will also execute. I will clear this confusion. Don't worry about it. Can you please make us understand the concept? Which concept? Which concept? JVM and interpreter? Okay, I will tell you. Don't worry about that. Okay, let me tell you what exactly all these things are. Let's say this is your JRE. Let's say this is your JRE. JRE. This is your JRE. Now JRE, inside JRE, there are two most important component. There are two most important component. One is JVM and another one is system libraries. System libraries means the jar files which we have already discussed. The jar files which we have already discussed. Now JRE is the runtime environment which is used for execution of any Java application. Is that clear? JRE is the runtime environment which we need to run any of the Java application. Is that clear? Okay. But when JRE starts execution of any Java application, inside JRE, it is the job of JVM to execute the program. But because JVM is a part of JRE, we say that the execution is done by JRE. But internally, inside JRE, it is JVM who is responsible for execution of the program. Is that clear till now? Is that clear? Okay. Now, JVM again contain one important component, which is interpreter. Interpreter. Interpreter is a application again inside the JVM, which actually executes the program. Now, what interpreter does is interpreter reads line by line code. Now, interpreter will read the code available in the dot class file. Dot class file contains which code? Byte code. Which type of code is available in dot class file? Which type of code is available in dot class file? Byte code. So the job of interpreter is to read line by line code and convert the byte code into machine code and then perform the execution and provide you the output. Is that clear? Is that clear now? Anybody have any doubts till now? Please ask. What is machine code? Machine code means anything, any instruction in binary form, because your system, your CPU does not understand but only binary instructions 0101. If you have in your college days, you must have gone through the digital electronics subject, and where you must have read that everything that your CPU process, they convert everything into binary form. And remember one thing, byte code does not means binary values. Byte code does not means binary form. Binary forms, first of all, dot class file contains byte code and which will be converted by interpreter into machine code. Is that clear now? Still any confusion? Yes, Atul. Compiler is responsible for converting .java file into .class file, and then interpreter, which is a part of JVM. JVM is a part of JRE. So interpreter reads the class file line by line, converts that into machine code, and then you get the output. Is that clear now? Cool. I hope now this is clear. So this is all about how JVM does the things, and the execution can be done by JVM only when it finds the main method. And the syntax of that main method must be exactly this. It should be public, static, void should be the return type, main is the method name, it accepts a string type of argument. That's it. This is the main method which is required to be available in a class in order to JVM to get the execution done. Is that clear? This is the main method which is required by JVM. Then only JVM will be able to execute it. Now, as soon as I added this main method, now if I right click here and if I say run as, Now you can see you are getting an option to run this as Java application, and now you will be able to run this class. Without main method, you will not be able to run it. Is that clear? Is that clear? Any questions, please ask. No doubts? Cool. So now we have a main method. So let's try to do something in the main method so that we can make sure that the execution has done. So I will be printing something on the console so that we can understand that yes, the execution is happening. So how do we do that? How do we print anything in Java? Any doubt? And sorry, anybody have any idea how do we print anything in Java? If I want to print something onto the console, how I can do that? Yes, I'll have to say system dot out dot println, and inside println you can pass anything, but as of now I'm going to print a text saying test class main method executed, and at the end of the statement you'll have to add a semicolon. Semicolon means semicolon is mandatory things in Java. You'll have to add semicolons at the end of the statement. It means end of the statement. Semicolon means end of the statement. That's it. And now let me run it. So I'll say right click, run as Java application, and you are getting the output onto the console saying test class main method executed. Okay. Arvina is asking, ln is for print. Ln means print line, print and move the cursor to next line. Like if you see again the output, okay, you can see the next thing that will be the cursor has been moved to next line. So after printing the text, the cursor will move to the next line. That is what println method is. If I just use print method, printing will be done, but cursor will remain on the same line. Same line. You cannot move to the next line. I'm pressing my down arrow key, but the cursor is still there. Okay. So generally we use println method. Is that clear? Okay, so basic idea I hope is clear that how to create a class, how to create. Gaurav is asking, is it necessary to write string array arguments? Yes, it is mandatory. You cannot remove it. If you remove it, you will not get an array error. But this is not that main method which is required by JVM. This is some other main method which JVM does not want. JVM wants the main method which should have parameter string array. Now the moment I have removed the string array arguments parameter, if I again right click on the file and if I say run as, now again I'm not getting the run as Java application option, because this is not that main method which is required by JVM. Is that clear? So if you're asking is it mandatory? Of course, is it mandatory? The variable name can be anything. The variable name can be A, B, C, anything. That does not matter. But it should be of type string array. Okay? It should be of type string array. Clear? But generally we use args. Args means arguments. Arvina is asking, Java is high level language. So when this bytecode comes, so when this bytecode comes, it comes when you compile the source file. You write the code in high level language. You write the code in high level language, but when you compile it, then you get the bytecode. Is that clear? Okay, Atul is asking only string array. Yes, string array. It should be string array only. You cannot make anything other. Means the data type of this argument must be string array type in the main method. Anything else? Any question, guys? Okay. So today what we are going to learn is we are going to talk about class. What is class? What is object? Why we create object? How we create object? Where the object will get created? Garbage collection, Java variables in its types, and we'll try to cover some string and string concatenation as well. Whatever we can do, we'll try to do that. So first, let's talk about Java class. What exactly is Java class? What is class in Java or in any object-oriented programming language? What is class? Any idea? What is class? What is class? Okay, so class is a collection of objects. Collection of object. Class is a template or blueprint instead of an object that contains methods, variable, and so many things. Class is template to create object. Okay, fine. Let's read this, PDF first. So here what you can read is it says that a Java class can be defined as template or blueprint which describes state and behavior of its object. In other word, we can say that a class is used to create objects. Like if you see this diagram, there is a class tree. Okay, and the class tree has a property height. It has a property height. Now height of tree can be different. Like the first tree A is 2 meters long and another tree is 5 meter long. So this is the basic thing that you must have seen in college days. In so many websites you must have read about these things, but actually you don't know the exact thing what actually is class. Now let me tell you, I don't go with this bookish definition of a class. Let me tell you what exactly is class. Class means classification. When you create a class, you define the classification of the object that you are going to create. When you create a class, you define that what will be the properties of the object that you will be creating for this particular class. For an example, let me take a very common example to understand class in a better way. Let's say you went to a carpenter. You went to a carpenter and you ask him that, okay, I want to get a chair created. Please create a chair for me. Please create a chair for me. Then what generally the carpenter will ask you? Yes, the carpenter will say, okay, I can create a chair for me, sorry, for you, but tell me what kind of chair you want to get created. What should be the design of that chair? What should be the wooden quality of the chair? What kind of color you want? What should be the length, height, and width of the chair? Tell me those classifications. Then you will tell him that, okay, this should be the height, this should be the length, this should be the width, this should be the color, this should be the design, this should be the wooden quality that you should use to create the chair. So when you are telling all these things to the carpenter, what exactly are you doing here? In this example, what actually are we doing there? We are providing the classification of the chair, the properties of the chair, isn't it? Yes. Now, based on those classification that you have told to the carpenter will follow those classification and it will implement those classification into a real object and your chair will get created. Yes or no? That is how normally we do the things. Clear? So if you see these examples very carefully, the properties you told to the carpenter, those things are nothing but classifications. The same thing happens when you create a class. When you create a class, you define the classification. You define the state. State means data. You define the properties, behavior of the object. One more example, I will take it here. Let's say I have a smartphone class. smartphone class. Now, generally, what should be the property of a smartphone? What should be the smartphone property? Now, you should have a calling feature, you should have a camera inbuilt, you should be able to play music, you should be able to capture videos, images, you should be able to, use internet on that, you should be able to use GPS, and so many other things should be there, isn't it? Yes, these are the common classification of a smartphone, isn't it? These are the common classification of a smartphone. Yes, okay, fine. Now tell me, under smartphone class, can I keep iPhone? Can I say that iPhone is a smartphone? Can I say iPhone is a smartphone? Yes. Why? Because iPhone contains all the properties that are defined as a smartphone property, isn't it? We can put one phone, we can put Samsung, we can put MI phone, Realme phone, all these things phone, all these phones under smartphone class. But can I keep Nokia 1100 inside the smartphone class? Can I say that Nokia 1100 is a smartphone? No, we cannot say it. Why? Why? Because Nokia 1100 does not contain that properties which you generally wants to have in a smartphone, isn't it? Which means that Nokia 1100 does not contain the classification which you have defined for a smartphone. So now understand it very carefully. Class is nothing but a classification. When you create a class, you define the classification of the object that you will be creating for the class. When you define the classification, you mention that what will be the state. State means data, what kind of data the object of that class is going to have, what kind of functionality the object of that particular class is going to perform. Is that clear now? Anybody have any doubt, please ask. Is that clear? Now, do you understand when we say that a Java class can be defined as template or blueprint which define the state and behavior of its object? Now, do you understand? Okay. Any doubts till now, please ask. Okay, cool. So now once we have understood what exactly is class, so now let's talk about how to create object inside a class. I think you know how to create a class, so that is not I'm going to repeat again and again. Now let us see how we can create objects, how we can create object for a class. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Guys, Rahul is calling me. Rahul Arora, give me 2 minutes. I'm getting a call from Rahul Arora. I don't know why he's calling me. Just give me a minute. Okay, guys. So now let us talk about how to create object. Do you guys have any idea? Any idea how to create object in Java? How to create objects in Java? Any idea? What is the syntax for creating objects? Okay, using new keyword. Using new keyword. Okay, so understand it. So first of all, understand what exactly is object, and then we'll see how to create objects in Java. So if you read this PDF, it says that objects are nothing but instance of the class. A single class can create any number of unique objects. Now understand it. What exactly is object? Object is the implementation of the classification of a class. Let me repeat it again. Object is nothing but implementation of the properties and data that you have defined in a class. When you implement a class, when you create object of a class, you get the state and behavior actually happening for that particular class. So when you create when you create object, you are creating the end result of a class. That object will have those data, those values, those variables, and those methods which you have defined in a class. Is that clear? So an object is nothing but instance of a class. Instance means end result of a class. Is that clear? Like you define that, okay, I'm going to create a smartphone. That smartphone, like how the Apple company would have been created an iPhone. They must have done so many research. They must have created some documentation with all the specifications, the property that they want to have in their iPhone, isn't it? But those things were just classification. But when they actually start implementing those classification into reality, they created the iPhone, and iPhones are nothing but object. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. So objects are nothing but the end result, implementation of a class. And we also call objects as instance of the class. Is that clear? Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? Please ask if you have any doubt. I hope this is clear. Okay. And one more thing that you should know is that you can create n number of objects in a class. There is no limitation for that. Okay. You can create n number of objects for a class. The only thing that you'll have to make sure that you have space available into your memory. Till there is a memory available, you can create object. Fine? Clear, guys? Good. Now, as we have understood what exactly are objects, now we will see how to create an object. Okay. So in Java, an object is created when someone says new. At each new, a new object of a class is created. Now understand it very carefully. To create any new Java component, we have some set of syntax defined for it. Now the object creation is done by using new keyword. New is the keyword through which you create a new object. So whenever you will be using new keyword, every time new object will be created, and every object in Java are unique in itself. Means they will have different memory address. They will have completely different memory address. Okay, objects are never duplicate. Objects, although you will be creating multiple objects for same class, but every object will be created separately, uniquely. Is that clear? Okay. Okay, so let me tell you how we create object. So in order to create object, first you'll have to say new. After new keyword, the name of the class for which you want to create object. Like right now, let's say if I want to create object for this test class, let's say if I want to create object for this test class, so I will say new test. And after writing the class name, you will have to add the parenthesis and semicolon. Adding these parentheses are mandatory. This is nothing but while creating the object, we are calling the constructor of the test class. Now don't ask about constructor. We will discuss constructor in detail during OOPS concept. Okay, in a very good manner, we'll discuss about constructors. But just remember one thing, that whenever you create object for any class, you will have to call the constructor of that class. That is a mandatory thing to do. So always remember that when you want to create object for any class, use new keyword. After that, use the class name and then add the parenthesis. Okay, and then in the left hand side, I'm going to store this object in a variable t. Now Arvina is asking, what is the name of the object here? You will never have object name. Object does not have name. Object does not have name. Object have type. So here the object that we are creating is test type object. Apple creates iPhones. Okay, so we will say object is unique. Of course, objects are unique. But object does have a type. Here the object that you are creating in line number 7, you are creating object for a test class. So the object that will get created, the type of that object will be test class. But object does not have any name. Now, as soon as the object will be created, as soon as the object will get created, a memory allocation will happen. Means the object that will get created, it will capture some memory into the heap. I will talk about heap in some moment. Whatever will be the, Gaurav is asking, can we use different name of object? Where is the name of object, Gaurav? What is the name of object here? What is the name of object here? Test is not the name of the object, now. Test is a class name. Test is a class name. T is a variable. T is not an object. Object does not have a name. Now understand what exactly you are doing here. Okay, don't worry about it. I will explain everything, but remember one thing, object does not have name. Here this variable T is a variable. It is not an object. It is just storing the address of the object that is getting created. Now let me explain what we are doing here. Let me explain in a simple manner. Understand it very carefully. Arvina is saying how we will uniquely define the object. The moment you say new, every time a new object will be created. Is that clear, Arvina? You don't have to do anything specifically to create a unique define object. No, you just have to use new keyword, and every time whenever you use new keyword to create object for any class, a new object will be created and that object will have a unique address. Is that clear? Okay, now understand this step, line number 7, step by step. So here I'm writing test t is equal to new test. Now understand, whenever in any line of code, whenever you will be using equals assignment operator, this is what is this equal to is known as assignment operator. Assignment operator is used to assign value into a variable in Java. Assignment operator, which is equal to, is used to assign value into a variable in Java. So whenever you see equal to or assignment operator in Java, remember one thing, always the right hand side part of that assignment operator will get executed. First of all, the right hand side of that assignment operator will get executed. And once the execution of right hand side is done, the value available in the right hand side will get stored into the left hand side variable. So here in line number 7, first of all, this right hand side will be executed. Okay. Okay. Is that clear? Okay. So when the right hand side will get executed, first of all, you are saying new. New means you want to create a new object for which class? test class. So the moment the right hand side part will get executed, a new object will get created and that will get stored into the memory, and that object will have a address. How that will look like? Something like this. Let me create a diagram for this. Now remember that objects in Java are always created inside heap. In which memory area? Heap memory area. The objects in Java are always created inside. Atul, don't worry about test in the left hand side. First of all, understand the right hand part, carefully, and then we'll go to the left hand side. Okay. So I'm saying that the objects will always get created inside the heap. Heap is a memory area. Heap is a memory area which will be created inside the RAM of your machine. So whenever you will be running any Java application on your system, as I've told you, JVM will capture some memory, and that memory, whatever memory is allocated or reserved by JVM, JVM will further divide those memory into 5 different memory area. So if you read about JVM memory architecture, just Google about JVM memory architecture. JVM divides the memory into 5 different memory area. Those are heap memory area, which is created just to store, only to store objects. Then you have PC register, you have class area, you have method area, and so on. So I'm not going to detail into the JVM memory architecture as of now, because that is not relevant for today's session. But you should know that whenever you create object for any class, the object will always get created inside the heap, and heap will be available into your RAM. Is that clear? Is that clear? Okay. So when this right hand side will get executed, a new object for this test class will get created. So something like this will happen. Let's say a new object has been created. A new object has been created, and the object that will get created for the test class will certainly have an address. Let's say, for an example, the address of this object is ABC123. I'm just taking some example. Okay, so when this object will get created, or when any object will get created for any class, that object will certainly have some address. Okay, memory address. So the right hand side part execution is done. Anybody have any doubt as far as the right hand side is concerned? Any doubt in the right hand side part execution? Please ask. Nawaz is asking why it is necessary to call constructor while making an object. No, we cannot discuss that today, because I will discuss that during constructor topic. Okay. When we will discuss constructor, we'll discuss these things in detail. But for creating an object, calling the constructor is mandatory. Okay. Now Arvina is asking test parenthesis. This should be class name for creating the object. Can we same names object? Gaurav and Arvina, I am unmuting you guys. Please ask your doubts one by one. Just a minute. Because it is taking huge time. Arvina, unmute yourself and ask your doubt. Arvina, please unmute yourself and ask your doubt.
Hi, Abhigya.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arvina this side. So we have mentioned test T is equal to new test parenthesis. So I'm asking this test parenthesis, you are saying constructor, which I don't know, but this test parenthesis is always the class name. Like we have public class
Exactly.
test, right?
Yes. So that's what I've told you, that in order to create object for any class, you'll have to use new keyword, then space, then the class name for which you are creating the object, and then you'll have to add the parenthesis. This is the syntax. New keyword, space.
One more object, then also we have to use the same class name, right?
Where?
If I want to use one more object for the same class.
The class is same. Now you are creating one more object for same class. So again, you'll have to say new test.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Now, Atul, I'm unmuting you. Please ask your doubt. Sorry, Gaurav was there. Gaurav. Yes, Gaurav, please ask your doubt.
Hello.
Yes, Gaurav.
Hello, I am audible.
Yes, yes,
Sir,
you
my
are.
question is that uh, if I have already created one object like test and I have created a new object of same name, is this possible?
Name of the, where can you see, what is the name? What do you think? What is the name here? When you
Is
are saying
test
name of the
like
object,
test object? Means test object. I have created two test objects in same class or multiple class.
that's what I've told you, na, that you can create n number of objects for same class.
Same names.
What, when you are saying name of the object, what exactly you want to, what you mean about when you say,
New test uh, colon. Sorry.
so the syntax is going to remain the same, na?
This, yeah.
There is no concept of name of an object. Object does not have name. Sorry. Objects are created
Okay.
for particular class, but object does not have name. Okay.
But I am somewhere listening that if we are creating one object and it is assigned in the heap, if we are again create the same names object, then that will be destroyed and new object memory is assigned in heap. Is it?
No, that does not happen.
Okay.
You read it, just mail it to me. If you have any things stored anywhere, just read, forward that to me. There is no concept. First of all, objects
Okay.
does not have name. They have type. Reference variable does have name. The variable will have name, but variables T and T1 are just variables. These are not objects exactly. These are just variables which are holding the address of the object that you are creating. T and T1 are not objects. These are just variable names, variables, which are holding the address of the object that you are creating in the right hand side. Is that clear? Now, when we are saying new test parenthesis, this is not name of the object. It means that I am going to create a new object for a test class. In line number 8, again, I'm saying that I'm going to create a new object for test class. So I'm just creating two new objects for test class. That's it. But objects does not have name. Is that clear? Okay, cool. So in right hand side, I hope there is no doubt. In right hand side, anybody have any doubt, please ask. In right hand side, anybody have any doubt, please ask. Now Sridhar, this is Abhigya. I'm the Java trainer here. Selenium classes will be taken by Rahul. But first of all, before the Selenium gets started, Java classes will be going on. And once Java is done, then the Selenium will be taken care by Rahul. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, Atul is asking object is created that stores in variable T. We will come to the left hand side. Don't worry about that. Arvina is asking, can we use only new test to create the object? Okay, so I was saying that, can we use only new test to create the object? Yes, we can do that, and we will do that today only. But first of all, understand this particular thing. Okay, so once the right hand side part is executed and the object is created, you have the object created and that object have a memory address. Then that memory address will be stored in this variable T. The memory address will be stored in this variable T, and through that memory address, with the help of this variable T, so when we say that this variable T will be holding the address of the object, this variable T This variable t will be holding the address of the object, and because this variable t is holding the address of the object, by referring to that address we can access the object, yes or no? Like let's say you want to go to a person's home. If you have the address of the person's home, you can reach up to that, yes or no? Yes or no? Similarly, because we have stored the address of the object in this variable t, by referring to that address we can access the object, yes or no? And that's why we call this variable as reference variable. Reference variable. Reference variable. This variable t here is a reference variable. This variable t is referring to this object. This variable t is referring to this object. Now, how this variable t is able to refer to this object? Because this variable t contains the address of the object. Why? Because you have assigned it. Using the assignment operator, you have assigned the value of this address of the object in this variable t. Is that fine? What is the job of t here? Do you understand the use of variable t here? You are storing the address of the object that you have created in this variable t. Now coming to the left hand side of this variable t, test. Why we have written test in the left hand side here as well? Why we have written this variable, sorry, this test class name here with variable t? Any idea why we have written test in the left hand side? Anybody have any idea why we have used this variable, sorry, this class name test here? Data type, exactly, data type. Data type. This test here for this variable t is behaving like a data type. Now understand it very carefully. In Java, where do we store values? Where do we store value in Java? Variables. In variables. How do we store values in variables? Is very simple. You will have a variable where you will assign some value using assignment operator. In the variable, you will assign some value using assignment operator. Okay. But when in Java, when you assign value to a variable, you will have to make sure that the variable is capable to store that type of value. Whenever you want to store or assign any value to a variable, you will have to make sure that the variable is capable to store that type of value, and the variable should also be capable to store that size of value. Now, how we will make sure that the variable is capable to store that type of value, and how we make sure that the variable is capable enough to store that size of value? How do we do that? We define that by providing data type of the variable in the left hand side. We define the data type of the variable. We define that what is the type of the variable by using a data type in the left hand side. For an example, you must have seen something like this: int I is equal to 10. Have you ever saw this particular code, not in Java but in any other language? Int I is equal to 10. Now if you see this statement, int I is equal to 10, 10 is a value, I is a variable, and int is the data type of this variable I. Now why we have used int here? Why we don't use string I is equal to 10? Why we use int only? Why don't we use string I is equal to 10? What will happen if I say string I is equal to 10? What will happen if I say string I is equal to 10? Now understand what will happen. Why we use int is understand it. In Java, the data type of any numeric value which is non-decimal numeric value, the by default data type of any non-decimal numeric value is nothing but int. Any number in Java, any number which is non-decimal, whether the value is positive non-decimal value or negative non-decimal value does not matter. But all the non-decimal number in Java are nothing but int in nature. Okay, all the non-decimal numeric value in Java is int. Now, whenever you store any value into a variable, you will have to make sure that the data type of the variable and the size of the data type of the values are same. Let me repeat these things again and again because these are very important things. Whenever you store value into a variable, you will have to make sure that the type of the value and the type of the variables are matching, same. If they are not matching, if they are not compatible, you will not be able to store value into a variable. And how we define, because value will certainly have a type, like 10 is of type int. If you have value 10.5, decimal values are double in nature. So value will have a type, but how do we define type of the variable? We define type of the variable by defining the data type of the variable. Now, when you define data type of the variable, two things will happen. When you define data type of a variable, two things will happen. The moment you will define data type of the variable, it will define that what type of value that variable can contain and how big value the variable can contain. For that reason, you define the data type. Is that clear now? The purpose of data type, the concept of data type is clear. When you define data type of any variable, two things happens. First thing, it defines that what is the type of the variable or what kind of value, what type of value the variable can store and how big value the variable can store. That is why it is mandatory in Java to define the data type. And that's why when we are creating object of the test class, in the left hand side with the variable t, I am defining test. Here in the left hand side in line number 12, in the left hand side, this test here is behaving like a data type for this variable t. Now, why I am using test? Why I am not using int here for the data type? Why I am not using int as a data type for this variable t? Why only test? Why not int? Why not string? Why it should be test only? Why I cannot use int here as a data type for this variable t? Any idea? Any idea? Because the object also have a type. Now here in the right hand side, the object that you are creating object for which class? In the right hand side, the object that you are creating object for which class? For test class. So when the object for test class will be created, can you tell me what will be the type of the object? What will be the type of object? What will be exactly the type of object will always be the type of the class. So here the object will get created. The type of that object will be test. And because the type of the value or the object in the right side is of the type test, in the left hand side also the variable should be of the same type, which is test. Now I hope is it clear? Clear? Anybody have any doubt? So here remember one thing, here t is a reference variable. Never say that t is the object here. T is not the object, it's just a reference variable. T is just a reference variable. T is not an object. Is that clear? Any doubt, please ask. Okay, so we have some class here. Sorry, some questions we are defining variable. Okay. Atul is asking, suppose public class student is a class, then data type is a student. Of course, data type is a student. Arvind is asking, sir, so the data type name and class name should be the same. Of course, it should be same. In Java, the data type of the reference variable should be of the object type. How many data types are there in the Java? We will do that. Don't worry about it. We will cover it. Okay, we will discuss about type of data types. Don't worry about that. In this, anybody have any doubt, please ask. Okay, no questions. Okay, now this is one of the option to create object. In this option, while creating the object, we define the reference variable as well, which means we store the address of the object in a reference variable. Now without reference variable also you can create an object something like this. This is one of the way of creating object. Okay, this is also one of the way where you create object but you don't have any reference variable. So both options are available, both approaches are used. It depends upon the requirement. Now what is the difference between these two approaches? What is the difference between these two approaches? The difference between these two approaches is that when you have reference variable attached to an object, then you can use that object again and again through the reference variable. Why? Because you have the address of the object stored somewhere in the reference variable. So by using that reference variable, you can access the same object again and again. You can use the same object again and again. But when you create an object without having reference variable, then you can use this object only once. Is that clear? Is that clear? Anybody have any doubt? Gaurav is asking one question. If we are using different classes, then object of which class? It depends upon your requirement. If you have 10 classes, if you have created 10 classes, which class object you want depends upon the requirement. Na? There is no guidelines for it. There is no rule for it. Sridhar is asking second object is reference by value. There is no concept of reference by value. It is this, the second object that you are creating does not have any reference variable. That's it. The second object that you are creating does not have any reference variable and you can use this object only once. That's it. Not more than once. Which way is best? Both ways are best. Both options are best. It's up to your requirement. If you know that you are going to use the object of a particular class only once, then use the second approach. If you know that you will be using object of a particular class more than once, then go for first approach. Is that clear? Is that clear, guys? Okay. So we have seen how to create object. Now we will see how, where exactly the objects are created. Arvind is asking, can we create object? Can we create an object of an class inside another class? Of course, that is possible. And we will be doing those things, but not in today's session. After few classes, you can create object of any class in any other class. There are some conditions, but we will discuss those things, but not today. Okay. Okay. Now let us read about, read this particular PDF. So it says that where objects lives. So object lives in Java heap. Java heap is nothing but memory space taken by JVM from the OS. All objects are created inside this heap space only. Whenever JVM encounters new keyword, it creates an object in the heap. But when there is no space in the heap to create object, then JVM throws out of memory. So that's what I've told you, that it is possible to create n number of objects for a class, but the moment heap is full, the moment there is no space available inside the heap anymore, you will get a out of memory error, and the moment out of memory error will occur, the application will get terminated there and then only. Is that clear? Fine. Is that clear, guys? Okay. Creating first object we have already seen. This slide is very important slide. Very important slide. Garbage collection. Garbage collection, very important thing. Garbage collection. Anybody have any idea what garbage collection? What actually garbage collection is all about? Means you can read about here, you can read this PDF, but anyone have any idea about garbage collection before coming to today's session? It removes the unused object, correct? So garbage collection is the mechanism provided by JVM to clean out the heap so that new objects can be created. So as I've told you that you can create any number of objects for a class depending upon space to be available in the heap. So what garbage collection does, garbage collector does it cleans out the object so that heap does have some space available. So here it is mentioned that garbage collection is the mechanism provided by JVM to clean out the heap so that new objects can be created. Fine. It destroys the objects which are not in use or eligible for garbage collection. Remember one thing, garbage collector will destroy the objects which are not in use or which are eligible for garbage collection. Any object is said to be available for garbage collection. Any object is said to be eligible for garbage collection if there is no reference variable attached to it. And in this class, which object the garbage collector will be destroying? Remember one thing, garbage collector destroys only those objects which does not have reference variable. It does not touches those objects which does contains reference variable. Any object which does have reference variable, garbage collector will never touch that. So in this class, the second object that you are creating, garbage collector will destroy only second object. So that's what I was telling, that there is no good option or better option. It depends upon the requirement. If you know that you will be using object of a particular class only once, then go for the second approach. But if you know that you will be using object of the same class again and again, then go for the first option. Both options are available for you. The good thing about second option is that it will be ready for garbage collection. And the good thing about first option is that you can use the same object again and again. So it's up to you and up to your requirement that which option you want to choose to create the new object. Is that clear? Clear, guys? Fine. So next thing that we want to talk about is Java variables in it and its types. So somebody was asking me, can you tell me what type, how many types of variables are the data types are there? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about type of variables, type of data types, type of variables. Okay, let's talk about it. So in Java, there are two types of variables. One is primitive variables and another one is reference variables. Now read this PDF very carefully. This is very important PDF. So there are basically two types of data types. The first type of data type is primitive data type, and second type of data type is non-primitive data type. So first let's discuss about non-primitive data type, and then we'll come to the primitive data types. Clear? Let's first discuss about non-primitive data type. So non-primitive or reference data type are defined by programmer. In this, the data type of the variable is the class whose object it is going to refer. For an example, here test t is equal to new test. Here test is the data type of variable t. Now understand non-primitive data type. All the user defined classes are nothing but non-primitive data type. All the user defined data type, all the user defined classes are nothing but non-primitive data type. Like the test class you created, like in this example, here the test class is behaving like a non-primitive data type because this test class is created by programmer, by me, And here test is working as a data type for this variable t. So this is a non-primitive data type example. Is that clear? What is non-primitive data type? Non-primitive data types are defined by programmer. In this, the data type of the variables is the class whose object it is going to refer. So every user defined class behaves as a non-primitive data type for the reference variables. Is that clear? Yes or no? Is that clear for everyone? Did you understand non-primitive data type? Anybody have any doubt? Please ask. Apart from class, any other non-primitive data type? No. Only class type data types are non-primitive, and those class should be user defined, not predefined. Clear? Okay. Then we have primitive data types. So primitive data types are defined by programming language. These data types are predefined, like int, float, double, char, boolean. These are nothing but primitive data type. Primitive means predefined, defined by programming language itself. Okay. Reference variables can never be of type primitive. The data type for a reference variable can never be primitive data type. Primitive data types are predefined. Okay. Is that clear? Is that clear, guys? Okay, so let us discuss the primitive data types in detail, because these are the data types which you will be using the most during automation. So these things should be clear. So in Java, we have eight primitive data types. Can you name those primitive data types? Can you name those eight primitive data types? Like you must have heard about byte, int is there, anything else? Float, boolean, double is there, isn't it? Long, somebody is saying string, okay, fine. Char is there, short is there, anything else that comes to your mind? Apart from these, anything else that comes to your mind? Varchar is not available in Java. Varchar is not a primitive data type in Java. Okay, now understand. First of all, remember one thing, a string in Java is not a data type. It's not a primitive data type. In Java, string has been introduced as a class, not as a primitive data type. In Java, string has been defined, or string has been implemented as a class in Java. So don't say that string is a primitive data type. No, a string in Java is not a primitive data type. It's a class in Java. Is that clear? It's a class in Java. Is that clear? As far as the string is concerned, string is a class, not a primitive data type. Clear? Yes, no, anything? Okay. So that's why I say that we have 8 primitive data type, and you should remember this particular sequence only. Byte, short, int, long. These 4 primitive data types are used to store non-decimal numeric values, both of type positive and negative non-decimal numeric values. Is that clear? If you want to store non-decimal numeric value in Java, then you can use any of these 4 data type based on the size of the value, which I will discuss. Clear? Is that clear? Yes. Then you have float and double. Float and double. Now float and double, these two data types are used to store decimal point values, both positive and negative, but you can use any of these data types to store decimal point values depending upon the size of the value. Is that clear? Is that clear? Cool. Then the next data type that you have is char. Char data type is used to store single character enclosed within single quote. Is that fine? Is it clear? The char data type is used to store single character enclosed within single quote, and the final data type that you have is Boolean. Boolean is used to store either true or false. Is that clear? And in Java, remember one thing, 1 does not means true, 0 does not means false. Okay, here true means true, false means false. 1 does not means true here in Java. Once 1 is a numeric 1, 0 is a numeric 0. That's it. Those do not represent Boolean values in Java. Is that fine? Is that fine, guys? Okay, so let us try to see how we can declare such type of primitive data types, how we can assign values, what are the important rules. So we will see these things. Now we will see the declaration and initialization of these primitive data types. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me create a separate class for this. Primitive data types. First of all, I should have a main method because I want to run it. Atul is asking, we can't use double quotes for char data type. No, in Java, anything which is inside double quotes means string, and you cannot store string in a char data type. Not possible at all. Double quotes means string. Okay. So let us go one by one. So we will start with numeric data types, non-decimal data types. So the first data type that we have is byte. Byte variable name can be anything. So in a byte variable, the range of a byte variable. Now, can you tell me how many size of memory will be allocated to a byte variable? How many size of memory will be allocated to a byte variable? Gaurav is saying something. Let's read. String is immutable means that you cannot change the object itself, but you can change the reference to the object. When you execute a is equal to ui, you are actually changing the reference variable to a new object. What are you trying to say here, Gaurav? What do you want to say here? Yes, Gaurav, please say what you want to say.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Sir, I'm telling that key means when we are creative same names means we have created test named object and its referencing variables is different. Like first referencing variable is t and second is t1, which is refer to same object. And first I am printing the first reference of the variable objects, and then I'm printing the second reference of the object. Then the first connection of that reference of disconnected and second will be connected to the object. That
First
is,
of all,
I think,
understand that string is a separate topic. We'll discuss that later. String is immutable, but these classes are not immutable. Are you trying to say that here T and T1 are pointing to same object?
Yes, means if we are running the program and print the different thing, first print the T and then print the T1, then the connection of that object is different denoted. First time denoted to T and second time denoted to T1.
What do you want to say here? Tell me that.
Means like we have created T and T1.
No,
And
understand
first,
one thing. In the comment you have mentioned string class completely. And here you are talking about test class. What exactly you want to say? The questions that you have put in, you are discussing about string class. Now, string class is a completely different concept. But here you are discussing test class.
not test class, reference variable, sir.
Okay, what
Reference
you
variable T and T1.
what is okay? If I print, let's say if I print A and if I print
No,
A1,
print T on above and then T1. It will give the same result, but the connection will be different in Java heap.
same result means
Means that first of all in what the
can you see the same result here?
means no, it will be different.
Then
Connection of the Java, I think it will be. I will read it out
are you
and then.
referring any website right now?
No, I am just go to a class of Java. Then they will teach me this
No
string
problem.
immutable.
String is immutable, but not this is not a string class, buddy. String, I have told that string is completely different logic. We'll discuss that. Don't worry about it. String is completely different. Here we have created object for test class, and here two different object will be created. Variable T will be pointing to the first object. It will have a separate memory address. Variable T1 is pointing to another object. It has a separate address. Both are pointing to different object. That's why the address of these variables are different. In case of string, the things are different. We'll discuss string in detail. So don't get confused. Is that clear, Gaurav? You are saying correct. String is immutable, and as far as your string concept is clear, that is correct concept. I agree with you. Okay, but same logic is not applied everywhere or with every class. String is a special class, immutable class. You cannot update the same string object again and again. Ultimately, you will be creating a new object. But that logic is not applied on every class. Is that clear? I'm again telling you, immutable example we'll consider. We will take the example of string. Don't worry about it. We'll cover the string in detail. So Gaurav, your string concepts are clear, but the same logic is not applied on another class also, which are mutable class. Okay. So we will cover these topics. Okay. So coming to the primitive data types. So I was asking that how much size of memory will be allocated to a byte variable. Any idea? Because when you define data type, the size is also allocated. The memory is also allocated to a particular variable. So can anyone tell me how much of memory will be allocated to a byte variable? How much of memory will be allocated to a byte variable? Come on, guys, quickly. Come on, guys. No one is asking. Oh, sorry, no one is answering. The size that will be allocated to a byte variable is a 1 byte memory. 1 byte means 8 bits. And the range of byte variable, the range of a byte variable is -128 to 127. Means values within this range only you can store in a byte variable. Is that clear? Because whatever will be stored in the variable, first those values will be converted to binary form in the format of 1010. So based on the size that is allocated to that particular type of variable, the range is defined. Similarly, for short, 2 byte of memory will be allocated. For int data type, 4 byte of memory will be allocated. For long, how much? 8 byte of memory will be allocated. How about float? How much of memory you think will be allocated to a float variable? 16, 4 byte. What about double? What do you think? How much of memory will be allocated to a double variable? Tell me. 8 byte of memory, correct. What about char? Char data type. Char data type. 1 byte, 2 byte, how much? Okay, it is 2 byte of memory. Char data type is allocated with 2 byte of memory. What about Boolean? What about Boolean? What about Boolean? 1 bit, 1 byte, or something else? Few of you are saying one, few are saying 1 bit, few are saying 1 byte. Okay, this is very controversial, topic. Many places I have read that you get 1 bit of memory. Many say that it is not defined. So I cannot say that how much of memory will be allocated to Boolean variable, but whatever I have read and whatever I have gone through, the books I have gone through, how much of memory will be allocated to a Boolean variable is not defined. It will be defined by the particular JVM at runtime. But a few of them says that, few of the good Java developer or trainer or book says that 1 bit of memory to a Boolean variable, but that is not defined actually. Okay, but again it is a controversial, debatable topic. Okay, clear? So how to define value into a byte variable is very simple. Between -128 to 127, any value you can store. Like I can store 120, no problem. I can store 127, it's still not problem, but I cannot store 128. Why? Because when you start assigning a value which is not within the range, you will get a compile time error. So you cannot store value more than 127 in a byte variable. Is that clear? Is that clear? And similarly, negative value, the minimum negative value, the minimum value that you can assign in a byte variable is a -128. If you go below this, like -128, immediately you will get a compile time error. So that's what I was saying, that the range of a byte variable is -128 to 127. And this is how you create a byte variable. Okay. And if your value is more than 127, you can go for short variable. I don't remember the range of other data types, to be honest, because you don't need to mug up those things. Okay. But anything which is more than 127, you can use short variable, something like this. Okay, then you can have int variable also. Int variable are used to store a bigger values, something like this I can store. Okay, if you want to store long value, if you want to store a much bigger value, like something like this, so you can go for long data type, but you will have to add a suffix to a long value. Okay, whenever you are using long value, add a suffix l. Add a suffix l. Okay, whenever you are storing any value into a long variable, use suffix l. Is that clear? That is defined in Java. Arvina is asking which common data type we are going to use. I will tell you at the end of today's session. How much long value we can give to which data type? To which data type, Atul? Long. The range of long is too big. I don't remember it. Let me, Google it. Just a minute. Long data type range. So this is the range of long data type. Is that clear? Okay. So you don't have to remember these things. Things are not asked in any of the interview. That this thing does not matter. In general, for numeric value, for non-decimal numeric value, in general, we use int mostly. Okay. Mostly we use int data type. Okay. But one thing you have to make sure that whenever you are using long value and you are using long variable, then add a suffix L at the end of the value. Clear? Similarly, float. Float is used to store decimal point value, something like this. But the moment you start storing decimal point value in a float variable, you will get a compile time error. Like here, when I'm trying to store 10.5 in float f, I'm getting an error here. Can you tell me why I'm getting this error? Yes, because suffix is required. Remember one thing in Java, whenever you are storing any value in a float variable, you will have to mention, you will have to add suffix f at the end of the value. That is a mandatory thing to do. Don't forget to add suffix f along with the value when you're storing the value in a float variable. Otherwise, you will get compile time error. Is that clear? Is that clear? Okay. Then you can store any, double decimal point value into d variable, means double variable, something like this. Very simple. For double, you don't have to add any suffix. The suffix is required only with long and with float. Okay, suffix is required only with long and with float. Is that clear? Is there any reason behind this? Of course, there is a reason behind it, which I will cover during operators. When I will cover arithmetic operator, then I will discuss this concept, because it needs some time to discuss these things. So I will cover at that time. When I will cover arithmetic operator, at that time I will discuss why it is required to add suffix with long and float variable. Is that clear, Gaurav? Cool. Then you have char data type. Now, whatever value you are storing in a char data type must be enclosed within single quote, something like this. And with Boolean, you can store only true or false, something like this. Either true you can store or you can store false. That fine, guys? Okay. Any questions here? Okay. So that's all for today, because the next topic that I want to cover is string and string concatenation. It will certainly take at least 1 hour. So we'll do that next class. Now Nawaz is asking, can we do something like this? Not possible, because in char data type variable, you can store single character enclosed within single quotes. Is that clear? Not more than one character. Okay, single character. Okay. That's all for today. We'll meet next Saturday, same time, and we will cover string, operators, and then we'll start with loops, those things. Okay. Doubts from last class? What is the doubt, Atul? Sridhar is asking my name. My name is Abhigya. Abhiggy. Abhigya Jha. Okay, this is my name. YouTube channel. Oh, I will upload tonight. You will get the email tomorrow. Probably tomorrow you will receive the email. Okay. So we have some questions here. Before we wrap up, let's try to answer those questions. So just a minute. Atul is asking, can we see the JVM like JRE folder inside the JDK? You will not be able to see because JVM is a piece of program. I hope you'll not be able to see. Just a minute. Let me try if you can. I have never seen it, but Java, JDK, JRE, where is JRE? JRE libraries. JVM. You cannot see it separately. I'll have to check it if I can. I'll tell you in the next class, to be honest. I will try to search for it. Okay, Atul? Sorry, who was asking? Yes, Atul was asking. So I will try to search, Google it, and if I can, I will answer it in the next class. Okay, Gaurav is asking string to char conversion when we done. We'll do it tomorrow. Means in the next class, sorry. Arvind is asking, sir, I have a question. What is an package? Will this be covered in the upcoming sessions? Yes, when I'll start creating package, but package will be covered in detail during OOPS concept. But at a high level, we'll discuss in next class when we'll start creating packages explicitly. Sridhar is asking my email ID. So my email ID is this. You guys can reach to me over my email, which is w2ajava@way2automation.com, or you can contact me on learnautomation.easily@gmail.com. Okay, these are my email IDs. You can reach to me on any of the email ID. Okay, so thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you learned new things today. And yes, any one of you can send me WhatsApp. Okay, you can contact me on WhatsApp. Any recommended book for core Java? Kathy Sierra. Just search for Java by Kathy Sierra. This is the best book for core Java. Okay, you guys want my phone number? Just a minute.